Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Honestly, I say this every single week, but I really genuinely enjoy being able to get a few minutes with you. And man, my heart is just to get together with people that want to grow in the things of God and grow as individuals. So great to have you, whether you're watching, listening, wherever you may be. I believe in the gospel of power. I believe the Bible is very clear about the gospel of power, that the kingdom is not just in word, it's in power. What I mean by that is I believe that God heals people, that God sets people free, delivers them from oppression. So I believe in deliverance, I believe in healing, I believe in supernatural breakthrough. So I believe in the gospel of power. But I also believe that God wants us to be empowered in every area. So while I believe the power of God is for healing and deliverance and breakthrough, I also believe that God wants us to actually be empowered in every area of our life, and that God is actually going after the areas that we feel powerless in. I remember years ago, I had a picture. It's a longer story I'm not going to tell you, but I was in a conference in Reading. We were doing one of our Jesus Culture conferences, and I just saw the Lord kind of walk in, and he took this word. It was kind of this 3D, kind of like bubble letters word, and it said powerless. And I saw the Lord break off the end of the word less, and he was handing people back the word power. I believe that God doesn't want us to be powerless, that God wants us to actually be powerful in every area of our life. And as a pastor, as I walk with people, I find that one of the things that causes the greatest anxiety in their life, where they feel the most stuck, they feel the most hopeless, they feel the most discouraged, is in areas where they feel powerless. I think there's some common themes wherever you live around the world, or wherever you live in America, whatever socioeconomic status you are, whatever age you are. Many times we find that we feel powerless in our health. So physically, many times, things are going on and we feel powerless. And I think the Lord wants to come and he actually wants to come and empower us with that, both in how we live, but also healing. When it comes to the future, many people just feel powerless about the future. Many people feel powerless around finances. This is a big one. This may be one of the biggest ones. The most stress people experience is around finances and anxiety around that. And the Lord actually gives us tools to feel powerful with finances and how we live and generous and stewardship and all that. But the one I want to talk to today about is maybe one of the biggest ones, is that people feel powerless when it comes to relationships, or when it comes to kind of interpersonal interactions and communications. It is one of the things that I think causes the most anxiety in people, is that when it comes to relationships, when it comes to, like I said, interpersonal interactions, people just feel powerless. And I think we feel powerless in all of these areas for kind of two main reasons. One is this: we forget that God is with us. You are going to feel powerless facing a situation if you forgot God was with you. But the minute I remember, and the minute I actually believe that God is with me and that God is for me, all of a sudden I don't feel as powerless when I'm facing that financial situation, when I'm facing that relational situation, when I'm facing that health situation or the future. God's with me. No matter how uncertain things may be, I'm not powerless because of the one who lives in me and the one who is walking with me. But the second reason why I find people feel so powerless in life is because they don't have the skill set or the tools needed for that situation. So they look at their finances, they don't have the skill set or the tools needed. They look at relationships, they don't have the skill set or the tools needed. The analogy or the story I would tell is, I right up until COVID, honestly, until the pandemic hit, I was not handy at all. I did not have a toolbox. I did not really have tools. I had never bought a drill. I'd never bought a power tool at all. I didn't have tools and all that. And then COVID hit, and things kind of shifted a little bit. All of a sudden, I went into like buying a bunch of tools and tool belts and toolboxes, and and shelves and hanging things and power drills and saws and all that stuff. But before COVID, I was, definitely lacking in the handyman category of my life. And I remember we were living in a house in Reading, and there was just a bathroom faucet. It was a bathtub faucet, and I could not get it to work somehow. So we couldn't use the bathtub. We couldn't use that. And I kind of tried to look at it, and I tinkered it with a little bit, but just could not figure out what was going on, why it was broken. And so I didn't know what to do, so I didn't do anything, except for I would kind of walk by it every day, and it wasn't like life or death. It wasn't like a massive anxiety, but I would kind of feel that I just felt stuck. I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do with the situation. I don't want to hire somebody. That seems silly. So I don't even know what to do here. So after a while, I would just begin to avoid it. I would kind of like, I don't know how you walk around it because it's in the bathroom, but kind of walk around it, not look at it, avoid it a little bit. Because I was a little bit stressed out because I didn't know what to do with this thing. Because I didn't know how to handle it, and I had no tools to handle it. So I remember calling a friend and said, hey, why don't you come over? I said, let's go to lunch. He's a friend who is super handy. Guy's built houses, can fix anything. He's just one of those guys. He grew up on a farm in Ohio. That should tell you everything you need to know, So I said, hey, why don't you come over to the house? So I said, let's go to lunch. Swing by, pick me up. So he swings by. He knocks on the door. I open it. I said, hey, listen, while you're here, can I just show you something upstairs real quick? He goes, sure. So I walk upstairs. I said, I cannot figure out this faucet. He goes, oh, that's not a problem. We walk downstairs. He walks out to his car, opens his trunk. I'm not making this up. Pulls out a tool belt with a bunch of tools in it and walks upstairs. I'm like, first of all, who drives around with tools in his trunk? I guess men do. That's what I realized. I guess real men do. That's what happens. Went down, grabbed some tools. Didn't even ask me for my tools. Didn't even ask if I had tools. Didn't care. Had his own. Went upstairs. 5 minutes. It wasn't even that. It was a quick little fix. Popped the thing off, did a little switch, did this. And I'm watching it the whole time going, this doesn't feel very complicated. That feels pretty simple, and I feel a little bit dumb right now. But the reality was I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have the skill set, and I didn't have the tools needed. But when somebody shows up to that, so because I didn't have the skill set or the tools, I felt stuck. I felt powerless. I wanted to avoid it. It kind of caused me anxiety. Like, welcome to so many of us when it comes to our finances. We just avoid it. When it comes to relationships, we just avoid them. When it comes to thinking about our future, when it comes to our health. But all of a sudden, somebody showed up. He didn't avoid the situation. He didn't try to skirt around it. He didn't back away. He went straight towards it. And you want to know why? Because he didn't feel powerless. Because he didn't feel stuck. Because he knew exactly what to do, and he had the tools to do it. So not only did he have the skill set, he had the tools to do it, and it was a quick, easy fix. So here's what I want to tell you. We have to approach relationships in a similar way. So many of you guys you feel so powerless in relationships, and you feel so much anxiety from them because of that. Now, I'm not just talking about either like your spouse. Sometimes it's your mechanic. Sometimes it's your next door neighbor. Sometimes it's a conflict at work. It's many times we just don't know what to do. We've got a conflict with a neighbor. I remember having a neighbor. It was just one of the most insane situations of a next door neighbor and dogs and how they responded. I'm trying to be nice. It just made it not fun. And so you're talking to your plumber, or you're talking to your mechanic, or a coworker, or your spouse or your kids. Go down the list. So let me just tell you two quick things. One is this: if you're going to be empowered in relationships, if you're going to go from powerless to empowered in relationships, you have to put the work in. Let me just tell you right now, you're not going to fall into it. You're not going to all of a sudden stumble into the right skill set and the right tool bag, tool belt, toolbox, whatever it is. You have to actually be willing to do the work. Commit to becoming a learner. Commit in relationships. I'm going to tell you about this. Read books. Listen to people. Lean into relationships. Commit to being a learner. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about today, it's just years and years and years and years and years of saying, I want to get better at relationships. I want to grow. I don't want to be powerless in relationships. I want to be powerful in relationships. So you have to put the work in. You have to become a learner. You have to grow the skills. You have to grow the skill set of this. How do I listen well? That seems simple, but it's amazing how many people don't actually know how to listen. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to reflective listen. They don't know how to listen and hear the point between the emotions. You know the phrase, read between the lines? Here's another phrase for you. You got to be able to read between the emotions. When people are coming at you and they're emotional and they're saying all this type of stuff, if you've been married for 5 minutes, you'll get my point right now, that half the time you're like, oh, those emotions are not the actual point. There's a point behind those emotions or within those emotions, and I have to be able to listen and to be able to figure that out, draw that out without getting my own buttons pushed. It's amazing how many people just in communication don't know how to listen. Grow the skill set of listening. Grow the skill set of lowering anxiety in a relationship. There's another one. It's amazing to me how many people, they don't de-escalate situations, they escalate situations. So there's conflict, there's confusion, there's miscommunication, and instead of me having the skill set and the tools to be able to say the right thing, to lower anxiety, to somehow de-escalate this moment, we don't know what to do, so we just, chuck a grenade in and just escalate it. We get louder, we get more emotional, we get more, and so grow the skill set of how do I lower anxiety, how do I de-escalate? You got to grow the skill set of how do I actually share my heart with you? There's a whole nother skill set. Not only how do I listen, but how do I actually share my heart with you? How do I actually figure out what's going on inside of me? Because the goal of communication is for me to see you and you to see me. That's the goal of communication. The goal of communication is not for me to tell you about you and you to tell me about me. It's for me to tell you about me to where you can see me. And it's where you to tell me about you to where I can see you. So how do I actually learn how to share my heart? What do I do? Here's a skill set. What do I do if we disagree? What do I do if we actually come to a point where we just don't agree on this? What do you do there? There's a whole other skill set. There's another tool. How do I gain, part of the skill set you have to have is to be clear about the goal. When I come into a relationship, when I come into communication, am I clear about the goal, which is this? For me, it's this. I want two powerful people to be connected. So I don't want to be powerful and you to be powerless. I don't want you to be powerless. I don't want you to be powerful and me to be powerless. I want you to be powerful. I want to be powerful. And as two powerful individuals, I want us to connect. I want to hear what's going on with you. I want you to hear what's going on with me. I want us to be able to, so those are all, but the point is this, is you're not going to fall into those. It takes real time and work to so you have to commit to be a learner and you have to commit to put in the work. Let me give you let me tell you where I think you can learn skills and tools. These are just some real practical things that we've worked with and I've worked with over the years. The first one is this, a couple books I would tell you to read. One is Danny Silk's Keep Your Love On. Brilliant book on how to continue to move towards people and not turn your love off, not put a wall up, but still, he's talking through boundaries, he's talking through needs, he's talking through all that stuff, but Danny Silk has a book called Keep Your Love On. Brilliant book for really giving you some tools, some skill sets, some different perspectives on how to kind of move towards relationships. Another one, and it's mainly just for one chapter, but 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a must-read when it comes to the chapter, the habit of seek first to understand, then to be understood. It is amazing to me how many people don't actually listen, but their goal is this: I want you to understand, but I'm actually not interested in understanding. And so Stephen Covey, in his book 7 Habits, in this chapter, just goes through, how do I first seek to understand? When I come in, my goal first is to understand, then to be understood. Now, I want to be understood, but I first want to understand. And so the ability to ask questions, the ability to probe deeper, the ability to explore somebody, what's going on with somebody else is just huge. So in any situation you come into, you got to just sit down and seek first to understand. So the two books, and listen, guys, there's Brene Brown. There's plenty of other books out there. I'm not giving you an exhaustive list. I would just say two that I would start with: Keep Your Love On and the chapter in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People regarding seek first to understand them to be understood. There's a teaching series I would have you go listen to. It's on Bethel.com, their store. If you go to Bethel.com store, just search Brave Communication. There's a teaching series called Brave Communication by Dan Fairley. It is maybe the most brilliant teaching around interpersonal communication I've ever heard. It is going to help you immensely in understanding people and understanding yourself, in kind of code books and tools to use. He talks just the simple thing about the I, it, you messages. I, it, you messages are we all communicate with some message. So the I, it, you message would be, a you message is you're a jerk and you did this. An it message is kind of passive, where it might say, man, it's cold in here. Translation, can you please go turn the heat on? I'm hungry. Translation, can you please make me a sandwich? So those are the it messages, but the goal is not to communicate with you messages or it messages, because my goal is not to tell you what's going on with you. My goal is to tell me what's going on with me. And so we have to communicate with I messages. He talks through all this type of stuff. I messages. This is how I feel. This is what's going on with me. When you did this, this is what I experienced. And my goal is not to tell you about you. My goal is to tell you about me. So he goes through I at you messages. He goes through reflective listening. He goes through code books. This is a big one. Everybody has code books, and we don't even realize they have code books. I remember Becky. I would say, Becky was on staff with us. She would ask me something. I'd say, sure. That was my response, which just meant, yeah, sounds good. But sure in her code book meant I didn't really want to, and I was irritated. For whatever reason, the way she grew up, sure was one of those trigger words that meant you really don't want to, but you're going to anyways. I'm like, it's not what it means at all for me. In my code book, it doesn't mean that. In your code book, it does. And for so many of us, we don't realize it, but we are filtering all of our conversations through a code book that we have. So I would say brave communication. And then there's 3 kind of tools that I think are immensely helpful in understanding yourself and somebody else. We've talked a little bit about this. You got to become world-class at knowing yourself and others. And the 3 that are easily accessible that I would tell you would be love languages, DISC, and strength finders. So love languages, there's a book. You can read it. My wife and I, in the early days of our marriage, we read love languages. It was so helpful. Because lots of times in communication, what you're trying to do is not just give information, but you're trying to connect. The goal of communication is not you get information, I get information. The goal of communication is connection. But sometimes we have a hard time getting connected when we feel devalued, when we feel run over, when we feel not seen, when we feel not heard. So many times just understanding somebody's love languages actually allows you to see them, actually allows you to move towards them, actually allows you to meet needs that they have so they can feel powerful. DISC would be similar. DISC, you can go look it up, DISC. John Maxwell's done a bunch of work on DISC. It also, I think, is a profound tool to really be able to better understand somebody and yourself. Sometimes in communication, we're having a hard time, so much communication as well as trying to hear somebody's needs and trying to communicate your needs. They've got needs that are going unmet. You've got needs that are going unmet. But do you even know what those needs are? Do you even know what those needs are? And many times, things like the DISC actually gives you a grid for, oh, these are the type, like this is what I need. I do need recognition. I do need affirmation. I do need whatever else. And then strength finders would be the last one. Again, I just think it kind of gives people some tools on kind of how you're wired. So this is what I would say. God does not want you to be powerless when it comes to relationships. He wants you to be powerful. But if you're going to be powerful in relationships, It means that you need to grow in the skill set of communication, in the skill set of understanding people and yourself, and you need to gain some new tools that you can use so that you can hear people, so that you can lower anxiety, so that you can do what's needed to actually see two powerful people connect. All right, are you with me? Let's get to work on this.